Greetings. In this video, we're going to go through chess and we're going to show you everything you need to know to get started with chess. We're going to look at the board, the pieces, ELO, what is that, clock, how to use it, notation, special moves, and what's going on in the world of online and how you can join chess clubs right in the comfort of your own home, and you can play people all over the world if you like. And you can also play chess bots, which we'll get into, zero pressure with those chess bots. And we're going to get into, of course, how to play chess, how the pieces move. And finally, if you hang with me, I'll go to chess.com and play a game and go through my thoughts and use some of the terminology that's used so you can learn about what's up with that, strategies versus tactics. Chess is a beautiful game of mathematics and artwork, and it's a lot of fun. So hang with me, we're going to make this fun, and by the end of this video, you'll know some of the lingo and how to get started. Okay, so first let's talk about the board. It is an 8x8 containing 64 squares. And when you play, white should be, the A1 should be at the white position, and it should be here on the left. So on your left, whether you play white or black, you should have a dark square on your left and a white square on the right. I recently did some traveling, and my son-in-law and I played a game, and they had the board set up wrong. They had it set in this position. And so it was kind of funny, but we fixed that problem. And so you should know that it's divided up in files and ranks. This would be a file, and then your ranks go across with the numeric. So this would be the first rank, second rank, third rank. You know, this is the A file, B file, C file. And so this position here that the white king is in would be the E3, and now the E4. And so that is some things about the board. So next we'll talk about setting up the pieces. And so what we usually have here is, or not usually have, but always have, is you have the king side of the board, and then you have the queen side of the board. And when you're setting it up, just remember, if it helps you, the kings should stare across from each other. I see a lot of people set up this kind of situation. That is not correct. The black queen goes on the dark square. The white queen goes on the light square, if that'll help you. And so you just start with your rooks, your knights, your bishop, your king, queen, bishop, knight, and rook again. And then the pawns will be on that second rank. In black's case here, this is actually the 7th, but would be black's actual second rank, but it's still called the 7th rank. Okay, so let's look at the pieces and how they move. So we'll start with the pawn. The classic opening in chess is E4, used by beginners and grandmasters. So a pawn on opening can move 2. They don't have to, but they can. That option is available. So a pawn can move 2. White always goes first in chess. Black responds. Okay. And a pawn can go 1 space or 2 space. Now, they capture on the diagonal. So in this instance, black can capture the white pawn. So they do not capture straight ahead. So if white gets out this pawn and maybe black does something else, now white doesn't have to, but white can capture on the diagonal, or white can do nothing, or white can even bypass that and push it up. So pawns can move 2 squares as their first movement. After that is only 1 movement, and they only go forward. So Here, for example, we have the C pawn. It can move 2, but doesn't have to. But after that, it can only move 1 square at a time towards the opponent's end of the board. And there is a special rule called en passant, which I'm going to show you about pawns. Don't get discouraged. Don't let that trip you up. But it needs to be discussed. It's French for in passing. And we're going to take a look at that situation. So now that we've discussed a pawn has the ability to move 2 spaces on opening, let's see what I mean about en passant. So if black comes here to the G5 square and moves its 2, if it lands directly across from opponent's pawn, this pawn has the right to en passant, which means it can actually capture even though it moved here. Okay, doesn't have to, but that is en passant, because if you're playing on a computer and you see this the first time like I did years ago, you'll swear it was a computer glitch. You don't know what happened. So, you know, again, so black can move here. If black moves here, white has the right to en passant and capture. But it's only when it happens. So if this happens and white says, oh, I got the right to en passant, I think I'll do that next time, and moves here, no, it's over. You don't have the right to en passant anymore. You do it then on your next move, while it happens, you know, after it happens, or forget it. So that is en passant. You should know that. Don't let it trip you up. You'll get used to it. And so that's en passant. One more very important thing you should know about the pawn is if a pawn makes it all the way to the other end of the board, it can promote. Some people call it queening because people usually want a queen, so it can swap out for a queen. And so now you have a queen. Even if you already have your existing queen, you just get another queen. And if another pawn promotes, you can do that too. You can, if the situation calls for it, you can promote into a knight if you want, or any other piece. But, you know, 99.9% of the time, you're going to want a queen. So pawn has the ability to make it to the other end of the board and promote. Okay, so let's take a look at the knight. The knight moves very unique in that it's an L-shaped. So, you know, the knight starts out here at G1, and a common place for it to go in the beginning of a game is F3. So, you know, it goes over 1 and up 2. That's how the knight moves. Or it can go over 2 and up 1. It creates an L shape. So the biggest thing to remember is knights move with the L shape. And at this point, I will take the time to tell you, the beginning of the game, control the center. Now, when you see me go to chess.com towards the end of this video, I'm going to play a game, and that's where I'm going to talk about strategies and tactics, controlling the center, developing your pieces, major and minor, and you'll see me talk a lot about that. But a knight is a minor piece worth 3 points, and I'm getting a little ahead of myself. I'm going to go through the points after I show how all the pieces work. So next is your bishop, minor piece worth 3 points. They move on the diagonal. You have a light squared bishop and a dark squared bishop. So this would be light squared bishop, dark squared bishop. And it can move on the diagonal as far as it wants, or as less as it wants. So the bishop can come out here on its turn, or go all the way here, threaten this knight, or come out here for check. So that's the bishop movement, is on the diagonals. They're a diagonal piece. They're considered also a long range officer because when the board gets cleared out, unlike your knight and your pawn, it can go a long range. So you might hear people say your long range officer, that's what they mean. So next we'll take a look at the Rook. Rook is considered a major piece. It's worth 5 points. And I'll discuss more about the points, so don't worry. Right now, the Rooks at the beginning of the game, although they're still worth 5 points, they're not considered that valuable until you get them going because they're blocked in by everything, as opposed to where your knight can get out in the action right away. So let's just say this Rook here is now not blocked in. It's free. It can capture this pawn. It can go, it's the opposite. Think of it as the opposite of your bishop. It can go along any file, any rank, for as long as it'll capture or hit something. So very powerful piece. As a matter of fact, 2 rooks together are more valuable than a queen. Now, I remember I said 2 rooks together are more valuable than a queen. So next we're going to take a look at the queen. So a queen is another major piece worth 9 points. And your queen is like a bishop and a rook combined is kind of how I think of her. She can go diagonal out here, and then she can come this way for horizontal movement. Then she can come back straight ahead. And then she can shoot back down diagonal, capture and check. So queen is very powerful. Then of course, the not so powerful, but most important is the king. The king only moves 1 square at a time in any direction. King can move backwards, horizontal, up, diagonal, but it's just 1 square at a time. Similar to a pawn, but a pawn cannot move backwards and a pawn cannot move diagonal like we discussed unless it's capturing. So I'm sorry to repeat myself on that, but I see a lot of new people into chess getting confused about that diagonal capture and confusing it with a diagonal movement. And the king can also castle. And don't let all these special rules scare you, but we do need to show what a castle is. So first we'll look at a Kingside Castle. And basically the king would move over 2 and the rook would move over 1. So let's take a look at that again. So this is a Kingside Castle. Nothing can be in between, and either piece cannot have already moved once. So if you've moved a king and then you come back, you've lost your right to castle. So it has to be the rook, both the rook and the king have not yet moved. Then you still have the right to castle. So you're moving over 2, rook comes over here. Now, I will say this, if you're in check, now the king is in check, you cannot castle to get out of check. That is an illegal movement. Or if the bishop is here, and you say, well, I want to castle, you cannot do that. You cannot put yourself in check. You can never put yourself into check. So that is a Kingside Castle. And next we'll look at a Queenside Castle, which is the same idea. This queen is in the way, so this the white pieces are not ready to castle, but let's just say white moves, black makes a movement, and now almost ready for a Queenside Castle. Again, this bishop is here. You cannot put yourself in check. So let's just say the bishop is not there. Now, as long as this rook and the king have not yet moved, you have the right to Queenside Castle. And again, it's going to be the same situation. King comes over 2, and the rook swaps over. Okay, so that's a special movement. Don't be alarmed by that. Once you get these little bit of special movements in your head, chess will flow a lot easier. Okay. So now I really want to take the time to talk about chess notation. When I started to play chess, I was like, I don't want to learn chess notation. That seems like work. I just want to have fun. But I learned chess notation and I love it. It really helps. I know a buddy of mine and we worked together and we played chess every day at lunch at work. And we started writing notation down, and I'll just show you an example. And it was fun to come back. This one was from 2018, and it's fun to come back and look at your games and you have to have the ability to quickly write, and it's easy to learn once you get it in your head. And you can, pick up these notebooks for a couple bucks. You can also, my wife got me this one. This is hard leather bound. This is for my serious games. I like to, take notation. And I was recently watching a world championship, and the commentator was quickly shouting out the notation. And so if you don't know it, you might not be able to keep up. And also buying books. I am not being sponsored in any way for this video, but I really enjoy reading these books. And this book in particular is great for beginners or even grandmasters. And I will tell you, it assumes you know chess notation. It's full of puzzles and things to help you develop your game. Like I said, it assumes you know chess notations. It shows the solutions all in chess notation. Once you get it in your head, it's not that bad to learn. It opens up a lot of opportunities for you to read chess books. So next I want to talk about the chess clock. And this is something that I really didn't want to know about when I started playing chess, but it's a lot of fun, and it's important that you know how chess clocks work and to understand some of the language. You'll hear, for example, my favorite game to play is the 20-minute game. It's called a rapid game. It's a 20-minute game. That doesn't mean the whole game is 20 minutes. That's a common misconception for new people to chess. It means each player gets 20 minutes. So you would set the clock to, I think normally you would be somewhere around, you'd set this to there. So, 5:40. And then that gives you 20 minutes on the clock. And your opponent would do the same. The buttons here are level. So at the beginning of a game, let's say so white goes first, so black would start the clock, and you see the clock has now started for white. So if white makes a move, and this is important, a lot of people I see they don't get this. When you pick up your piece with the same hand you moved your piece, you hit your clock. It stops your clock and it starts your opponent's clock. And it has to be the same hand that touched the piece. Now, this clock, the black's clock has stopped and white has started. And so it goes on like this. And so when it gets towards the end, one thing I want to show you is right here is so time is running out for white, and if you'll see that as the last few minutes of the game, that flag rises as the minute hand comes by. The 20 minutes is almost up, and then as it comes right there to the last second, you'll see the flag drops. So that way there's no debate. You say, well, it wasn't quite 12 yet or whatever. Then of course I don't have this just adjusted. This is just to show you. So then the flag is fallen. So in this situation, black would say to white, your flag is falling, and your flag has fallen, excuse me. And so the game's over for white. White lost then because you ran out of time. Now, most clocks today are digital, but I'm a little old school. I like the old analog clocks. But with the digital, there's more variations you can play. I know one of the popular games, I don't really care for it too much, but it's a 3-minute game with 2-second intervals. So you set 3 minutes on the clock, but every time you make a move, you gain 2 seconds. So I've seen some interesting games where somebody was, less than a second left, and they moving so quick, and then they kept, gaining 2 seconds every time. So a lot of neat stuff. We're going to look at some of that. We're going to play a game on chess.com, and I'm not being promoted by them either. It's just I'm going to log into my account and show you how it works. And so the best way to really get in about strategies and tactics is just to go through it, trying to let you know some things that can help you. A lot of times people, even in the World Championship game I recently watched, they will call out, you know, the pawns are not a piece, okay? That's one thing that you should know. Your rook, that's a piece. Your knight, that's a piece. A pawn, even though it has a numeric value of 1, is not a piece. So what will happen is a lot of times take a look at this H file, for example, when a player starts to move the H pawn, a lot of times they'll call it Henrietta, or some people call it Henry. They're referring to the H pawn. And over here on the A file, they might say, you know, oh, Magnus is moving Anna, or Andy sometimes, or, you know, George. That's what they're referring about. So you should know that too if you start to get into chess. That might help you. So before I go to chess.com and start playing and talk about strategies and tactics and get a little bit more into the number value of the pieces and some of the creativity of chess, we need to quickly discuss one very important thing, and that's how to win. A lot of people say, well, you win by capturing the king. That's true, but not exactly true. You don't actually capture the king. You basically put it in check, and then its mate where it has no place else to go. So, for example, if we're talking about the white pieces, here's the black king, okay? So this would be check, but it's not mate because the king has a place to go. So now it's the same situation. Let's do this again, only this time the white queen moves and it's check and it's mate. The difference is because the king has no place to go. The white queen owns this square. You cannot put yourself in check. So it's mate. You don't technically capture the piece. Maybe that's just a little technicality, but that is checkmate. The king has nowhere else to go. A lot of times, I'll tell you in proper chess etiquette, if black is in this position, if I was playing black, I would be a sport about it and forfeit. And when you're playing over the board like this, you forfeit by knocking over your king. And that reminds me real quick, I was playing chess with a friend of mine, and he was actually doing really well, and it was a pretty tight game, and he reached for one of his pieces, and he actually knocked the king and knocked it over. And anyway, I just gave him a hard time about it. That's a forfeit, and anyway, it was a lot of fun. I let him stand his king back up, but just so you should know about some chess etiquette. There's also the possibility of stalemate. And I can tell you, in a lot of situations, a lot of games I've played where I'm winning, my opponent will try to force a stalemate. So here's a good example of a stalemate. So let's say it's white's turn to move, okay? So white moves here. Maybe white's trying to set something up, who knows? So white moves there. Now it's black's turn to move. And it's only got 2 pieces. Well, this pawn can't move. It's blocked in. And the king can't go here because, oops. Yeah, he should probably resign. But, see, it's easy to do. So you can't put yourself in check here. So you can't go there. And so, well, can the king go there? No, he can't go there. But the king is not in check. So what to do? The black opponent cannot move, so it's stalemate. So it's game over. It's a draw. So white does not win. Black does not win. Stalemate. It's a draw. And also, just for fun, one thing about a computer is it's kind of like being at a chess club. Keeps track of everything you do. I just wanted to show some of my achievements that I've done. This Jingle Bell was. Just different bots that I've beat. This is Mrs. Claus, or Holly Berry, I think is the name that they give her. So there's all kinds of fun things that you can do, and I know a lot of people are shut in. And this one, for example, Full House, was an achievement that I did. I won a game, live game against a person, and I didn't lose a single piece. And so I feel sorry for them, but I was super thrilled to get that. This one, we were talking about the clock. I won with less than a second left on the clock. Close game. And World Traveler played people from at least 10 different countries. So that's something you can get into. And some of my recent ones, I think I had a puzzle one here. I got this one, my puzzle ELO. I mostly do puzzles. That's what I like the most. And my ELO hit over 2,500, so I got this award. And I think it keeps track. You know, this is when I hit 2,400 and so on. So a lot of cool stuff out there. Just trying to, I'm not being promoted by chess.com. There's other chess sites too that are awesome. Just showing you what I do. And then now we're going to get into a game and we're going to talk about ELO. We haven't talked about that yet. You're thinking, what in the world is that? We're going to talk about that when I get into my game. Okay, so if you're new to chess, finding an online place to play, especially today, is a lot of fun, and I just wanted to show you this. This is chess.com, and I'm not promoted by them in any way. It's just what I use. Their homepage has a lot of great articles, chess clubs you could join. They have tournaments. You can join chess clubs and have actual tournaments. And this just so happens to be this CCCC is like some computer chess. If you're a computer programmer, you might be interested to know there is competitions to see where you as an individual doesn't play, but your program plays. And that's really interesting. That's like this whole big thing that people get into, the computer programmers get into. So if you're a programmer, check that out. And there's always like, here's what's streaming now. It's like kind of like it has its own TV thing, if you will. And here's kind of like its TV guide, if you will, of shows coming up to watch. A lot of times I'll just watch some of these shows, and they're great. And you can follow different people and all this. And yeah. So a great place to start is I'm at chess.com and I'm playing their bots, their chess bots. And so there is like zero pressure. These are not real people that I'm playing against here. And you can see there's a ton to choose from. You come out here, beginner, and this little number underneath is important. This is, I'm finally going to talk about ELO. So it's a number rating system, and I actually looked at the mathematical formula. I was really curious about it. And wow, yeah, the mathematical formula to figure out an ELO is over my head. Yeah, it's crazy. I have a daughter that I'm sure can figure it out, but too much for me. So anyway, the point is, so beginner starts at 250 ELO and goes up to 850. Okay, so intermediate starts at 1,000 and goes up to 1,400. Advanced starts at 1,500 and goes to 2,100. Master levels, you're looking at 2,200 to 2,450. And then these are different people. We were talking about some of those TV shows or streamers. So this is just some streamers that are out there. And this, I'll tell you, this number, like this Joel 1600, this is just a programmer's best attempt to show you what it feels like to play somebody who's rated 1600. And you can compare that, and there's even charts and you can look at and record your progress and see how you're doing. So you might be curious to know what, maybe I can beat a 1600. Is that good? I can tell you that's very good. Most people that play chess, they're probably, what was that, 550? Once they've played a few games, yeah, they probably start getting in here. Maybe somebody who plays, a few times a year or something might hit in some of these ranges. And so once you get comfortable with those, you start working up, towards the intermediate. That's pretty good. 1,000 is pretty good. Anyway, it's probably better than average, I would think. Yeah, I'll have to look at the charts. Don't hold my feet to the fire on that. But anyway, so these are a lot of fun. Zero pressure. You can make the game as quick as you want, or you can take days to play it if you want. So I would suggest starting off with some kind of bot. And other chess sites have bots too. You don't have to do that. Just because there's zero pressure and you can kind of play around with the pieces and see what's what. Okay, so here I'm going to play Laura, rated 1100, and I could choose, keep it friendly, assisted, or I could customize things. I can have it where the computer shows me some good moves, which might not be bad for starting out, but I like to just see what I can do on my own. So let's get this going and let's see what happens here. So, okay, so remember, like we said, I'm going to do the E4 pawn just to control the center. In the beginning, you want to control the center, and you got your 4 minor pieces. You want to get those developed first. Usually, I'll start with the knight on F3. Developing the knights first is usually what I try for, just because they can hop over pieces and where your bishops are kind of blocked in. So we're just going to play this game and see what happens here. So, okay, so let's see. And yeah, I'm going to just play good, clean chess. I'm going to develop my knight. And this knight is protected. This knight, remember those L shapes. So this is like a battle of yin and yang. And who's going to control the center? So I'm going to bring out my bishop now. And one thing, okay, so I'll show you why Laura did this. Put this pawn here. Because one thing in chess is this F file is very dangerous because there is a square that is only defended by the king. And it's like this right here. This square is defended by this and by this. So that's usually a good place to attack. Like if that pawn wasn't there, honestly, I was going to go here, which creates big problems because I can put the king in check. Okay, that square would be defended by this knight, or I could bring the knight into this position instead of the bishop, and then I'm forking. In other words, I get it when you hear me say fork, that means I can pick between, and you want to lose your queen or a rook. So let me get those arrows off there. Okay, so one strategy is once you've developed a piece, try not to move it twice. Because most games, if they're evenly matched, last on average 42 moves. And if I move a piece twice, let's say I bring my bishop out and then later I bring it back down to here, that's almost like sacrificing a turn. And even if you do that early on in the game, you're still almost sacrificing a turn, and it could mean the difference between a win and a loss. Just because it's really coming down to turn order and so on. So try not to move a piece twice. That's a good idea. And I'm still trying to control the center. This is still the opening of the game. People usually consider it the mid game once all the minor pieces are off the rank, off your rank and the opponent's rank. Then that's when people traditionally say, now you're in the mid game, the middle game. So right now we're still in the opening, okay? And there's a ton of openings out there. You don't have to memorize all these things. Just pick 2 or 3, and you'll see some of the other ones you might not know the name, but it's just a variation or an out of sequence step to what you're doing. What you already know. So, okay, so here. I think we were talking about castling, I'm going to castle. So we're going to, because I haven't moved either one of these pieces, then, they're seeing each other. There's no pieces in the way. I'm not bringing myself into check or anything like that. So I have the right to castle, and I'm going to do it. A good rule of thumb is to castle before the 10th move. And that's only a rule of thumb, do whatever. So right now I'm like, what's my greatest weakness? So my greatest weakness is this bishop is blocked in. So I want to free it up. I'm going to You know, I might even just, you know what, I'm going to just push it up to here. These pawns here, the D and E, I know is the same value as, say, this A pawn. They're both worth a point. But the ones in the center tend to be a little stronger because they can do more, okay? Because they're controlling the center, okay? So one thing that's important to see about this point system, it's just a good rule of thumb to say, well, I don't know if I should take here, for example, then my opponent's down a point, but then her knight will take my knight, and I'll be down 3 points of the knight. So I'll be at a total loss of 2 points. So therefore, it's not worth it for me to take this pawn. And you might be thinking, well, okay, that's pretty simple. And it is. But you get into complex issues where you're looking 3 moves and you're like, take. And you have to do these calculations and decide if it's worth it or not. So if everything has a point value, it helps you make your decision. Now, I recently played a game against Mrs. Claus, and it's out there. You can watch it if you want, where I sacrificed a bishop worth 3 points, and I took out 2 pawn. So I'm actually down 1 point. But those 2 pawn were protecting the king. And then a few moves later, I, was able to get the king into trouble and then go on and win the game. But my strategy was to take out those pawns. The tactics was when I started to take out the pawn. That's the difference between a tactic and a strategy. A tactic forces your opponent to do something. Strategy is kind of like your big idea of what you're up to. So, okay, I've digressed long enough. Let's get back to this, shall we? Okay, so I'm going to, even though it's defended, I'm going to push my pawn all the way up. Just I'm curious to see what she does. Okay, I was really expecting to take, and then take. I get my queen out. Now, it's not a good idea. That's what I was expecting, but it didn't happen. It's not a good idea to get your queen out too early because it becomes under attack. So I'm going to watch out for that. So I'm going to do something a little different here. I'm going to push the pawn and threaten this knight. And I'm kind of curious to see what she does. Okay, retreat there. So usually a pawn structure is what you want. You want this nice like chevron shaped is kind of what you want in the center of the board. I did kind of block my own bishop in there a little bit, but at the same time I freed this one up. So, we'll see what happens. I'm still just trying to controlling the center. One thing that Laura, I forced her to move one of her pieces. That's frustrating in chess. You want to be the one in control, then control the center and make forcing moves. So I got my pawn on her side of the board and forced her to be in a position where she doesn't want to be. And I have 3 minor pieces developed, and she only has 2. And one of them is in not so well placed because it's kind of stuck because it can't come here because I'll take. So that's just these little things, especially when you're playing chess. Well, I don't know what to do. I don't know where I should move. Just anything that gives you a little bit of an advantage, because that's how you win a game. 1100 I think is a respectable ELO. I think it's pretty good. It makes you stay sharp. Yeah, I think it's a respectable ELO. And so anyway, let's keep this going. So the biggest thing is, and now here I am. What do I want to do with this? You know what? I think I'm going to set up for a fanchetto just to kind of show what that is. And that is, I'm going to push this pawn and see how she responds. Okay, and now I'm going to put my bishop here. I have future ideas of owning all this diagonal. And, I own it up to here right now, but chess is all about future ideas. And so I'm seeing a lot of pieces here on the king side. One thing is if your pieces are too busy, so this knight is attacking this pawn. It is defended, but I've got my knight tied up defending this pawn. So one thing I think I might do is just, but that wouldn't, I'm just going to slide my rook over, okay? I'm just trying to show good ideas and what have you. Okay, so at this point, I think I'm going to start swinging my knight over to the king side of the board. So just to kind of free up this bishop. And let's see how Laura reacts. And so, yep, I lost a pawn there. So that'll learn me. Okay, so yeah, let's keep things going. Trying to control the center. I think believe it or not, I'm going to take now. I got to do something with this knight just hanging out. Okay, I'll show you. I'm going to take him right back where he was. Okay, that's terrible in chess. So right now I'm not playing very good because this is exactly where we were, and I'm down a pawn. So yeah, that's not good on my part at all. So I think I'm going to drop this bishop back and just try to control this, and so that's what I'm going to do. And so now my oh, I thought I was expecting to take for a double stacked pawn. Something you should try to avoid is a double stacked pawn, but she doesn't do it, to my surprise. Okay, 1100. Sometimes it'll hang a piece, and so what that means is sometimes at 1100 they won't see a capture, or they'll leave a piece hanging, like I left my pawn hanging, basically left it undefended. You'll hear people say this kind of thing a lot. So I think I'm going to just retreat it back down. Okay, so I'm going to get this knight out of the way. I want I see the queen and the king lined up. I want to try to threaten that, to pin that queen. So we'll see if I can do that. So let's see. I'm going to bring this knight over here. Okay, so now that, if we go back a step, this is a dangerous spot to be. And so the reason why is because that king is going to be exposed. All I got to do is get my knight out of the way, and the queen can't move unless it's to capture. So I'm going to capture that queen. So that was one thing I saw, an opportunity. When that queen steps out in front of the king like that, alarm bells should be going off that is an opportunity to capture a queen. And so now I'm still trying to play good, clean chess. And now that I'm up a queen, it's usually a good idea just to go ahead and trade material down so that you can simplify the game. You'll hear people say simplify the game. That's what they mean. They're just going to trade down. And actually, I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to try to trade down and keep it simple. There, she should have retook with the bishop, because it would be lining my rook, which is worth 5 points. That's a major piece. And she would not have this double stacked pawn. Not only is it double stacked, but it's also isolated. It's not in its natural state and doesn't have the support of its mating pawn. Okay, so let's take a look at this. And okay, so here's one thing I want to point out. This is what I mean about little differences. So I lost my dark squared bishop. I have my light squared bishop. To compensate for that, I'm going to move up my queen to a dark square. So it's kind of like I have my light and dark squared bishop together, which are very powerful. So let's do that. And I'm threatening, and I've got some development going on. So she had to get out of the way, and bishop is worth 3 points. So should I take? This is where the point system helps. If I take, the pawn structure gets reinstated, if you will. Is it worth it for me? Well, a bishop has the power of 3, a rook has the power of 5. So yes, that is worth it to me. So, okay, so there's the take. And I might try to get a little more aggressive and get my queen really up in the game. I do see that I can come up here for check, and yeah, let's see. I'm just trying to see if there's, I think one thing, this makes me a little nervous. I've got 2 pawns on my side of the board. I have to be careful. My tempo is I'm trying to get this queen up here and do this, and then I've got these knights helping out, and I need to get this rook in the game also. So that's my tempo. Should I slow down my tempo and take care of this pawn? Okay, so you'll hear people say about the slim tempo and they don't want to slow it down. And then you also hear people talk about time in a game like this. They don't necessarily mean like the measurement of minutes and stuff when they talk about time. They're talking about the time of, you know, how many moves have to happen before I can get this rook and this queen working together. Which reminds me, make sure you use your pieces together, because one piece by itself, even the queen, can't do much. The queen by itself is not going to checkmate. You have to have the aid of another piece. And when I started playing chess, I'd see a queen in my area and I'd be like, oh my God, this is nuts. But it's by itself, it's probably going to be in trouble. So anyway, before I go to this check, I think I'm going to ignore this pawn, and I'm going to put I want my bishop or my rook in the game. What am I saying? I want my rook in the game. And so let's see here. I'm going to try to set up. So now I own all this. This is what they call an open file. Okay. There's not, so here, like this D file, for example, this would be a closed file because there's my pawn and my opponent's pawn. So this would be a closed file. If there was, if this white pawn wasn't here, it was just this, my opponent's pawn, then I'd call that a semi-open file. Okay, so in chess, I always look for an open file to put your major piece on. And a lot of times I'll try to get like a major piece underneath a pawn and then try to promote the pawn to a queen or something. You want your major piece under your pawn, not on top of, if you're trying to promote. But right now, if I could get, I see this. I'm trying to look into the future, get future ideas. My future idea, my tempo that I'm trying to set into motion, is to get this queen here and its mate, because I own all this. That's what I'm trying to do right now. This pawn owns this and this. So I'm wondering about going here for check. If it comes down, can I, get something going where I can get that queen here? Or should I try to get the queen just here and then just come straight here? I'm going to try that, actually. Okay, so let's do that. And yeah, okay. So, because now she has a defender, so if I put her into check, she's going to defend. I think I'm going to do something. I think I see something here. I think I'm going to go with my original tempo. I'm going to go check. Now she cannot retake because why didn't she just retake? She cannot because I own that. Okay, it's backed up. My pieces are working together. This is where the strength comes from, is pieces working together. So here, I see that she does have a defender, but it's a white squared bishop. So let's see if we can trip her up a little bit. Check. She has to deal with it, and there's her problem. So she's now defending herself with the wrong squared bishop for this situation. So now look at your screen, and you should see a mate in 1. So if you see a mate in 1 right now, kudos to you. That is awesome. Mate in 1. You have to use the correct pieces. There's a couple options, but it is right here. Okay, so that is game, and so yeah, that's it. I hope that helps, and we can analyze the game, but my recording box is actually in the way. Shoot. Well, that's not important. If you've seen some of my other videos out there, analyzing the game after you play is very important. It'll show you what you've done, what you can improve on, and I've learned so much by analyzing my own games and making these videos. And I hope this helps. So much fun. And by the way, chess notation. Hey, look, gang, here we go, right here. You can kind of learn it indirectly, actually. So you can see it's not that bad. It's not as scary as it looks. Yeah. So have a lot of fun with chess. I hope that helps. If you're just new to chess and this video has helped you, leave a comment. I'd be really curious to know how are some of your games going. Let me know. I'd be curious to know. I do these videos to help people. So anyway, hey, thanks for watching and have a great day.